Hello everyone, welcome back to another Club by Club AFL draft analysis. In this video we're going to be looking at the Gold Coast Suns, and they have picks 39, 41, 51, 61, 70, 76, 78, and whilst that might seem like a good few picks, it's only for one spectacular player, Leo Lombard from the Gold Coast Academy. And the talking point of this is the impact Leo Lombard makes at the Gold Coast Suns. I'll quickly ask, where do you think he gets bid on first?
I see him as a top 6 player. So in my rankings, he's sitting at number 6. I think what people can expect of this guy first up is just explosive, athletic, dynamo of a player. Like, he can play in the midfield, he can play all over. So I think a team, I'm probably expecting somewhere in that St Kilda range who hold picks 7 and 8.
Yeah, and I would agree. I've got him as the 8th best player in the open draft, and obviously St Kilda hold that pick, and that's going to get pushed back to 8 and 9 with the expected bid on Levi Ashcroft in the top 6. So I think that St Kilda should be the ones that hold Gold Coast accountable. Otherwise, I reckon Richmond will do it thereafter. So That would be my answer.
As far as where he fits into the Gold Coast team, like, obviously they've been running that midfield for some time with Tuke Miller, Noah Anderson and Matty Rowell. They've got Will Graham, who's come in and played a little bit of football. He's probably more that a little bit defensively minded mid, along with Matty Rowell. And then you've got the ball in hand guy, which is Noah Anderson. I think what Leo Lombard can do is just come in and play a bit of a hybrid role between like a small forward and running through the midfield. He can just give them a little bit more of that explosive pace in there. They can, once the ball's locked inside forward 50, to have a player like that that's so good around goal and can break tackles and create space inside forward 50. I think he's a plug and play. The fact that he's been playing in that VFL side, played in a grand final, and he's been doing it for several years, he's pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, so you profiled him before. I think the one thing that's really important to touch on with Leo Lombard that gives him a point of difference compared to most of the other draft prospects in this crop is that he has been playing senior footy for more than 1 year. Gold Coast VFL, he's been getting selected there regularly, and not only getting selected there, but making an impact and playing in the midfield. To do that as a teenager is exceptionally rare at any level of senior footy, let alone doing it in a VFL side. And he's been able to show the traits that you described before, just that rare combination of athleticism, speed and ball use. But what's also really impressive with him is his ability to hit the scoreboard and his cleanliness below his knees as well. So with that midfield that you talked about with Noah Anderson, Matt Rowell and also Tuke Miller, I think that combination should be getting them into finals next year with some of the pieces that they've been able to add. They've obviously got some speed off half-back now with Johnny Noble coming in and also Daniel Rioli as well, and they've got Damien Hardwick there as coach. So they should be in finals with that midfield mix. Leo Lombard should come in there in spurts, but I think he actually starts at AFL level, perhaps controversially, as a small forward who hits the scoreboard and is able to find teammates, and his kicking efficiency can really shine through. And then when he goes into stoppages, I think he'll be very hard to stop. But because Gold Coast have got that luxury of having that surplus of top-end midfielders, he doesn't need to have the pressure of going in there straight away and making an impact around stoppage.
I 100% agree. I think his midfield time will be used very sparingly, probably just to give him a little bit of an induction. The other player we forgot to mention there is Bailey Humphrey, who also has those explosive traits and someone that can play forward of the ball. So they just have such a conveyor belt of talent going on at the moment, the Gold Coast Suns. Like, it's crazy. I think if you talk about that midfield mix, I think Tuke Miller's probably the one I could see starting to slowly get phased out. Whether that's pushed to wing, maybe a little bit of half-back, and he's just there more as a development role. I can't think off the top of my head how old he is now.
I think 27.
Is that all?
Yeah, I think he's about 27.
I thought he was closer to 30, but interesting. They've got just such a bright future. I can't see them missing the finals this year.
Well, I'm going to go away from the analytical side of football here, and why Leo Lombard would make the difference. What Gold Coast lack is a competitive nature outside of Victoria. I think they all just drop their heads. Obviously, the lack of supporter base interstate, I guess, makes a difference. It's just you're pretty much playing for yourselves interstate. But he's a competitive beast. He's one that lifts your side each week. Like we saw that for the Allies. Like, especially the Allies, you don't play with these kids barely at all. You really have no connection with them until a few games in. But his ability to lift I mean, he's an accountable player as well. Like, he understands what his weaknesses are and how to build on them. So I think accountability-wise, to have a type of player like that can work into your side and drive standards. He's just a player that drives standards, and that's what the issue has been with the Suns when, the going gets... What's the saying?
The going gets tough, yeah.
Just they're not there, and they can't do it when it really matters. So I think he really impacts that way. Would you two agree? And I guess to wrap it up, is he genuinely the difference that the Suns need?
Yeah, I think he certainly is. One thing I'll say, he's turning 29 next year, Tuke Miller, just to answer that question that we talked about before. I think Leo Lombard is one who is going to come in and he's going to play most games next year. He's shown that he's got that durability over a 2-season span. I guess the question then becomes, with those three midfielders they've got, and you also talked about Will Graham, and they've also got Jake Rogers as well, how do they all complement each other in a midfield, and how does that style of footy hold up in September? Because it hasn't held up, like you said, Nathan, on the road at all, and it probably needs, from what we've seen, a little bit more sturdiness if it's going to hold up in September. We haven't seen them play September since their inception into the AFL, and at the moment, like you said, late in games when the game's on the line, they probably aren't able to win it often enough and have enough of an impact in the midfield. So what does Leo Lombard and even the other conveyor belt of talent that you describe do, and how are they able to change the fortunes of this club?
I mean, I see Leo Lombard as the prototypical Damien Hardwick player, and we've got to remember that he's only had one season here at the helm to try to implement his game plan. We know he likes to play that sort of chaotic, territory type game plan, get the ball inside forward 50, and he's going to win those contests. Like, I think we forget with Leo Lombard that he is a Lark medalist.
Yeah.
And he's not the, you sort of expect the players in their junior football to be winning that, like a Jagger Smith, like a Levi Ashcroft type, but he's playing that sort of football already. Like, I think he could have as big an impact as anyone coming into this side. And I could see the Gold Coast Suns, while everybody's sleeping on them, and like you said, Nathan, they don't have the history and the legacy and the fan base. And I think that's why at times they've travelled really poorly. But I could see them having a really big rise up the ladder, going from a speculative team into the pushing for the top 4 even.
Yeah, and I think people are just frustrated because we've said that for so many years and they haven't quite been able to deliver. But hopefully next year is the year that the fortunes do change. The one thing I'll add with Leo Lombard, it's just his power as well. So you talk about a lot of those players. I think Bailey Humphrey has that raw explosiveness and power, and you add Leo Lombard to that, and I think it's a perfect blend with Matt Rowe's defensiveness, the ball use and class of Noah Anderson, and then Will Graham and Jake Rogers really rounded out really well. From a midfield point of view, they've got a list that should be contending. I've heard Kane Corns talk about it for the next decade.
It's really just about fitting them all in. And that's why that conversation around the picks, them trading away pick 6, it was overs for Dan Rioli, but from their perspective, why would you care?
Yeah.
Exciting times for the Gold Coast Suns. Check out all other 17 clubs across our channel and Dylan's channel. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in another video.